a little bit more experiences with my next door neighbor. We were pretty inseparable, and I was very attached to her. I think I really was longing for a sense of security in my life through anything and anyone. There was this teacher that everyone wanted. She was like this young new teacher, and we all wanted to be in her class. Like, I don't remember what grade we were going into, but I remember being on the bus and you open up that paper at the end of the year who you're going to go to, and I see that I got her and I was really happy. And then my neighbor friend was not in the same class, and I was like devastated that we wouldn't be in the same class together. It really bothered me. And then later I found out that my mom deliberately did that. Like, she asked the school to separate us because she felt like I had no sense of identity outside of her, which is something that I actually repeated through some friendships, like with my best friend, which I'll mention later. So I'm just looking at my notes. Oh, so another thing that happened with this neighbor was so I had this sense of, I just knew when something was evil. And I didn't ever feel God, but I did feel presence of evil. So one time her cousin moved into a new house and they were having a celebration, so we went over there, and the minute I entered this house I felt this repulsion and this dread in my gut, and I didn't know why. And that we were walking around, they were showing us different rooms, and there was this one room, it was kind of like an attic, and there was like all this writing on top, and I don't know why, it just disturbed me on a really deep level. I just wanted to flee this house. Anyway, I find out they had this son and he committed suicide. So I just sensed things when I was younger. Another thing that happened, like a bad experience with some demonic forces, was my grandparents lived downstairs. So I went downstairs to see my grandpa, and on the TV screen was this shaved monkey. Like, all the hair had been shaved off of it. It was some type of horror movie, I think, and it was bleeding. And it just terrified me, and I would have nightmares about this. And to this day, like, I actually tried to look up like shaved monkey in a movie, and I have not found it. And I just wonder if I was seeing something in the spiritual realm and not actually what was on the screen, but I'm not sure. Also, when I would go to with my parents to their friends' houses, I dreaded and hated it. I don't even That's another thing. I don't know why. I just felt this emptiness in my gut all the time. And maybe I was anxious, like an anxious kid, and I wanted to be home. I am such a homebody still. So I'm not sure. This is something that had carried around with me all the time. This empty, lonely feeling. When I was in elementary school, I did not have friends. And I remember being out in the playground during recess time and just sitting at the cement and taking a stick and like just digging the dirt in there and just wishing that I had a friend. And eventually I did get this friend who was from Australia, and she and I were really close and we did everything together. We would go over her house after school, and her mom would give us Entenmann's cookies and milk or tea, and it was just like wonderful. And then this other girl came along, and basically, I know it sounds very immature, but she stole her from me. Like, she wanted to be friends with her and did not want me in the picture, and somehow she ended up luring her away. And then my friend just paid no more attention to me. I think I had somewhat of poor social skills. I don't know if they do this anymore, but in kindergarten they used to have a section where it says gets along with others, and I would always score low in that area. It is probably because of the way my father spoke around the house and the lack of connection with him and conversation that caused that. Like, there was absolutely no times where my father and I would sit down and talk, or I would tell him anything, any of my problems. This definitely continued until junior high. I wanted to be a part of the popular crowd. for it was like a fate worse than death to be associated with the uncool kids. So the popular crowd didn't really want to be friends with me. I was in a very awkward stage, like physically, and probably not that cool, according to the standards there. So I would always tag along. Like nobody actually wanted me there. I would always have to be the person that called them. Like they would never pick up the phone and call me, but I had to be there. And I think if I had better self-esteem, I would have chosen people who are like me and actually had a friend group. But I chose like the people that were unattainable. The people in this group, all of them dated, but nobody would date me. And there was a time, there was an incident where we played spin the bottle, and this one kid like spun it and landed on me, and I could tell he was like disgusted with the thought of having to kiss me. There was another time where this kid, he drew everybody as an animal, so like all the girls, so he was a very good artist, so he drew like one girl as a peacock and another girl as a rabbit and another one as a cat. And so he drew me, and I was really excited because he had all these beautiful pictures, and I opened it up and it was an ape. And I it's so weird because these things happened so long ago, but they hurt. You remember them. So actually, which is really strange, is that that same kid, we ended up getting really close later on in like high school, and I think he actually had a crush on me, and we would talk on the phone all the time. My father would yell at me to get off the phone. We would be on the phone for hours, but he was dating this other girl. So I guess she got wind of the fact that we were talking so much, and she told him it's either her or me. So one day I come into school and I had classes with him. So I'd be like, I was like, hi, sitting next to him, whatever. And he completely ignored me. I tried to have a conversation and I was completely like baffled. I didn't understand what was going on. But by the end of the day, I realized he didn't want anything to do with me. And I didn't know the information that his girlfriend had said this. I remember walking home absolutely devastated. I walked home with my two friends, and it was just one of those very I don't know what the word is, like a time in your life that you really remember where there's just like extreme pain. Another turning point was when this girl had gotten kicked out of her school and came to our school. And at first it was weird because at first we were friends, and she was a really, really bad influence in my life. Like, a little bit background about her. Her parents were divorced. Her mother completely neglected her, but she would buy her things. Like, for Christmas, she wouldn't just get like one pair of nice gloves. She would get them in like every color. But she was pretty much a sociopath. And she would start all these things in the school, and she would get people to hate, like turn on one person and hate them. So this girl, some of the things that happened to me with my association with her is she wanted to steal. It was something that would never occur to me at all in my mind, to steal. So we would go to department stores and like Macy's, and we'd steal, like we'd go into the dressing room and like put layers on, put the new clothes in there. And I also stole like Hello Kitty stuff that I actually held on to for years. And we actually like almost got caught. We were walking out of the store, and this security guard came over, and I had like a package of stolen stuff, so I gave it to my friend, and while he's talking to me, she basically jetted out, and he had no proof. And then the last thing I actually stole was a bag of Doritos from like a bodega. And after that, I just said to myself, like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I guess very easily influenced and didn't think things through and didn't know who I was, so I would do things like that. And she also like taught a whole bunch of us about masturbation. It seemed like she was like more knowledgeable and worldly about things. And there was like this other time, and this is where I believe some even like more demonic openings came into my life, where she took out an Ouija board and she was like talking about how, when you move it, it like says things and it gives you answers. And for some reason, like people were participating, but I didn't want anything to do with it. So now with this girl, she also, at the same time that we were friends, she also relentlessly bullied me and would get other people to bully me. I would like come to class and she'd sit behind me, she or her friend, and they would kick the back of my chair. There was another time where I got this outfit that I thought was really cute. It was like these blue pants and then this shirt with like pink stripes and the same color blue as the pants. And I just loved it. And I came to school and I just saw them completely making fun of me. And I felt so humiliated. Never wore that outfit again. Also, she would like get mad at me and she'd write me these awful letters, like telling me off, just saying the worst things. So the piece de resistance, as they say, she, like, I don't know if I mentioned, she would turn people against each other, large groups of people. She would turn them against each other to hate somebody. So there was a sleepover that she had where she invited all the cool kids, all the popular kids. I was not invited. No, I might have been invited, but my mom, although she wasn't strict about anything else, she did not want me to go. And it had to be God in a way, for even though I don't fully understand why this happened to me. So they have the sleepover. I obviously feel left out. Next morning, I start calling people that were my friends, and nobody's answering their phone. So finally, I get a hold of somebody, and she was like, "Oh, nobody told you? We all decided that we hate you and we don't want to be friends with you anymore." So from that point on, I had no friends, nobody to talk to. And I remember even sitting on the stoop one day. It was in the summer and I had nobody to hang out with, and just like wishing for just one friend. This incident literally like messed with my head so bad. I would go away on vacation where I had so much fun and had like a great time. It was upstate. And I'd be terrified to come back and find out like everybody hated me, because after that I began to get some friends, but because of what happened, lived in absolute fear that people would just stop talking to me. So I always felt like I had to be wherever it was. Even there was a time where I was like in my room crying to my mom, and I was like, everybody hates me, like nobody likes me. Like I didn't understand, nobody liked me, and it was so painful. Oh yeah, another thing that happened with this girl is, so it was her and this other girl, and they were both the popular girls, and they would talk about each other to me. So what I did is I told one of the girls what the the sleepover girl who did that to me, what she was saying. So she found out, she passes me a note. Some of you younger kids will not understand. Now you all text, but she passed me a note to meet her after school because she was going to beat me up. So, like an idiot, I go and meet her, and there was like a witness there, one of her friends, who basically sat there and watched me getting beat up. So she just started punching me and ripping my hair and all that kind of stuff. And I remember being afraid to punch back because I was like, well, if I do something, she's gonna hate me even more, and then I really won't have friends ever. Like I was afraid to stand up for myself. And one of the worst parts was she lived 2 blocks away from me on the same street. So after this beating that I took, she basically would take me and throw me into the bushes. Like while we were walking, she would take me and throw me into the bushes. She was like so violent towards me. Actually, another time we were at her house and she like threw me into the bathtub. I think I was like her punching bag. When I think about it, she physically and mentally abused me. So So then we get to my house finally, and I get to the front of my house, and my mom was there, and suddenly I got enough courage, and I took out my hand and I was like, F you, Lisa. Oh, there's her name. Oops. I'm trying to protect the guilty. So I ran into my house, and the next day I didn't go to school. I had a bloody nose and a black lip. And so then I go to school, and people are like looking at me, and they were like, what happened to you? And I said, Lisa beat me up. And they were actually angry. They were like, can't believe she did that to you. I guess I was just like a quiet girl for the most part. And they were so disgusted. So actually my now best friend and this other girl, finally everybody had had enough, because she would make everybody hate one person. I don't know how she did it. She was very demonized. She had a huge demonic influence. So she they got fed up, and they decided everybody was going to turn against her now, and she ended up with no friends and experiencing what she had done to everybody else. And then she would call me in the summer, and I went over her house, and it was just pathetic. Like, now I saw her as this pathetic thing because she was like so powerful before. My friendships were kind of sporadic, but in junior high I started hanging out at this park, Rath Park, and it was like where all the stoners were, there were like older guys and my age, I believe. I was like 13, so they were like high school guys, and they would play handball, and they would give us free weed. I don't think I ever had to buy weed. Like, once they would just give us pot. And so the first time I smoked, I was like, what is this? Like, I don't feel anything. I believe like when you first smoke, you don't feel anything. And then, but I pretended that I did, and I was like acting crazy, and everybody's like laughing. I guess I was entertaining them, but I actually wasn't feeling a thing. But then I did begin to regularly smoke pot. Wow, like crazy. And then I would go home and eat like an entire bag of Doritos. Meanwhile, I was like 105 pounds soaking wet. Like, if I did that now, I'd turn into a huge cow. So I had this really bad experience with smoking, which made me never do it again. So, of all the things, we go over this person's house, and I smoked, and I just felt so weird. So it was laced with something. I was like looking at the fan, everything was like in slow motion, and I was just got really scared. Everything was just very like surreal. And at the same time, guess what movie we're watching? We're watching The Exorcist, where the girl's like levitating and her eyes are going back in the head. And I actually felt like I was her. Like, I felt like I was experiencing the same things that she was experiencing. And I was so terrified. And I actually was like, take me to the hospital. I was like asking my friends to take me to the hospital, but nobody did. And then I walked home. What was really strange is suddenly, like, the whole thing lifted. But I was like, I'm never smoking again. Like, I feel like it was God's way. I was like, okay, you have been playing around for a really long time, and now you're done. Now, I had gone through a very ugly stage, but I guess I started getting pretty. And when we were at the park, there were these high schoolers, and they would play handball, and we were like, all the younger girls, we were like in love with them, you know, they're gorgeous and everything like that. And we sit against the fence and watch them. And there was just one particular guy, and he'd wear his wrestling suit to play handball, and his physique was like amazing. And he ended up, out of all the girls, liking me, like picking me, which was something that had never happened. So it was like amazing to me that someone so gorgeous thought I was like the most beautiful girl. He even looked through like in the yearbook at the end of the year, and he was like, you're like the prettiest girl. I mean, I never ever felt like that. But so I began to have like a pseudo relationship with him. So it ends up like I was like 13, and he was, or yeah, 13, 14, and he was like 18 or 19. Like, at one point he was 20 when I was seeing him, and I was underage. And I like relentlessly pursued him. I would walk over to his house. I would invite myself over. He was my first kiss by the gazebo, and it was quite magical. And he was really gentle. And with sex, like, I was like, why does everybody think this is so great? Because, we had sex, and I remember it was like so painful. I'm like, I don't understand this. And it took a couple of times, but like, I just, I didn't enjoy it. Actually, before this, older man older man relationship, every single guy that I was with, and even friends, would just literally ghost me. That we didn't have that term back then, but they completely abandoned me. I This one guy, I had a date with him, and he took me out to eat, and we're talking, and I'm like talking about my best friend and how pretty she is and blah blah blah. Soon to find out, first of all, he never talked to me again. He called her because he was friends with her brother and tried to have a date with her, and was saying that I was going around the school like talking about him and saying he was my boyfriend, which I certainly wasn't. And it was just like so awful to find out that he just said these things about me after our date, and then tried to like pursue my best friend. And my best friend, actually, it was I was always in competition with her. Like, she had a very good sense of self. She was super cool. I'll actually talk about how we met. We met in art class, and I was really good in art, and she was like very funky. Like, she did her eyeliner like a cat's eye, and she was like into rock, and she dressed really cool, and she was very self-assured, and she took a liking to me, and she didn't care that I wasn't popular. Like, she just had so much confidence that if she liked somebody, so she sort of took me under her wing. Like, wherever we would go, guys would always like her and not me. Like, there was one time we were online to get autographs from some like glam band, and this guy came along and his friend, and I wanted to be with him. He had long hair. I would only go out with guys with long hair. And but he ended up liking her, and then his friend like sort of like me, but I was like, no, he's ugly. um yeah. And so another time, there was this guy. He was friends with my one of my really close friends, and I don't know what, there was like something, just I was so drawn to him. He was so deep. I was deep, and we hung out. But then he also like just stopped talking to me. It was weird too. One time I actually had him over my house when my parents weren't home, and my grandpa comes upstairs. Obviously, I'm not allowed to have like a boy over with nobody home, and hid him in the closet. Which my grandfather realized right away, and opened the door and started shouting at him, and he like kind of ran out. But we were still together after that, but like, there was just, I don't know why I was so in love with him or so into him, and he just stopped talking to me. People would just stop talking to me with no explanation, and it was incredibly painful for me to deal with, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and I didn't know how to process it. What I did was take it completely out on myself and say that I was unlovable, unworthy, ugly, not pretty enough. That's why people do things to me. Because if I was prettier, people wouldn't treat me like that. It's like my value was in my physical appearance, because that's how my dad taught me to think. So obviously it was probably so much more than that. It was their issues. I mean, maybe there's probably something I did to make people not want to stay with me, but that's why when this guy liked me, it was just very meaningful to me, because nobody treated me like that. So, and one of the worst things, I would not want people to show that I cared and that I was vulnerable. Vulnerability was like the scariest thing to me, because anytime I was vulnerable, I would get just abandoned. So one thing is, if somebody did something to me, I would never like call them out or anything. I would just take it and disappear, and hate myself even more. Um, so with this older guy too, one time actually, I went to his house without telling anybody, and nobody knew where I was for hours. And my mom called the police, and then I guess she got some intel that I was at his house, and she actually drove over there, and I used to ride my bicycle over to his house, and she made me walk my bike while she screamed at me the entire way home. um he actually also had a girlfriend, by the way, who was his age, and one time I went to the park and he's there like hugging her, and Journey's playing Forever Yours, and I'm like looking and being so upset, and he's like looking at me while he's hugging her. I guess she had no idea that he and I were like messing around. So around this time as well is when I started getting into witchcraft, or yeah, witchcraft.